What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome to a full-ish view. Maybe not a total full view. Hopefully it will become fuller as the hour goes on. But yes, big up to Cam, big up to Good Vibes Job. On time, these two, my favorite pupils are here. They're on time and ready. We are expecting Marcel at some point. He says running a little bit late, but he doesn't believe in time, remember? So I'm not sure how that will work. Minna's having internet difficulties. So hopefully the show will get fuller indeed. But before then, there's still plenty to talk about. So be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Heck of an intro, wasn't it, Cam? Heck of an intro. Enjoyed that? Or was he frozen?
I was waiting for him to say something.
I was thinking.
I was holding that face the whole time.
Me too. I was thinking, I tell you what, he's got a heck of a poker face, John. I'm thinking. That was just a 2-man show. It's not even full view.
Might as well just call it the duo view. Let's do it.
But big up. I can't even say big up to the panel. It's us. We're here.
I mean, look, it's all good. The vibes are still. Oh, he's back. There you go.
It's fine.
Was never away.
Exactly, indeed. But big up to the panel. Yeah. That's it. In John and Cam. We've got plenty to talk about, though. We've got to talk about Ugarte. There's a lot going on with Manuel Ugarte today. Whether the deal is imminent, whether it's not imminent. It's a bit of a confusing one at the moment, whether it's going to be a loan with an obligation to buy, whether there's conflicts between INEOS and Qatar. Apparently that's a thing as well involved in all of this too. So there's plenty to get into. But first, I do want to give Good Vibes John his flowers. I don't know if you've seen this, Cam. He's been chatting with Fabrizio. Yeah? He's been chatting to Fabrizio. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm surprised you're here. Like, if I was doing that,
yeah.
I'll be doing what Flex is doing, and just UV are too small for me now.
Exactly. Exactly. Good vibes. I mean, it was a hefty booking fee this evening for John. You know what I mean? Hefty booking fee, but we got him. We locked him down. But big up. I tell you what, I enjoyed you asking him about the different catchphrases that have been going around at the moment as well. Yeah,
and I was very surprised that he answered it. To be quite honest with you, I thought he'd be more reserved about it, but he actually took it on it was actually very responsive, and I really loved the way that he answered it. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised. So many people were saying that, sometimes, with respect to transfer news, you might not always get some exclusive update. So when that happens, it's just, it might not feel as exciting. But for me, it was such an incredible opportunity and experience, and just the idea of having somebody like Fabrizio come on my channel and grace me with his presence. And he during transfer window, he told me he works at 18, 19 hours a day, and he says it's absolute chaos. So he books his windows into 10-minute blocks. It's absolute chaos. But either way, for him to give me that opportunity was just, honestly, for me, a dream come true in so many ways. So yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Speaking of which, he does have an update today when it comes to Ugarte. It feels like everyone does, to be honest with you.
Right.
But he said that Manchester United are close to getting Manuel Ugarte deal done. Manchester United want to proceed with a loan with an obligation to buy. A meeting with PSG was positive. There was this talk about United making a bid for Edison from Atalanta. Hogwash, not true. He says that Man United want Ugarte. The details are being discussed. The deal is at the final stages. The Manchester Evening News saying that a deal to sign Ugarte is thought to be imminent. It will likely be a season-long loan move with an obligation to buy. Fabrice Hawkins, French-based journalist, is saying Ugarte is closer than ever to joining Manchester United. It feels like everyone's got their own version of saying imminent or close, and that's been the case what it's been for the last few weeks. But interestingly, from Duncan Castles, he has also said that negotiations are progressing. PSG expect a sale of this. But the relationship or lack thereof between Qatar and Sir Jim Ratcliffe of INEOS, maybe some sort of frostiness with some things that have been said, post-strategic alternatives being explored with INEOS winning that race, are complicating the factor. And there's a battle of egos as PSG owners do not like INEOS for scuppering Qatar's bid to buy Manchester United, although they were totally unrelated. Remember PSG and the bid. I was going in for Manchester United, which is very interesting. Cam, I'll start with you. You're the stats man. You know these things. With Ugarte, no pressure. What will he bring to Manchester United? Why do you think United are looking for him? What do you think he would bring?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, and I'm probably not the person to be answering it because over this summer I have pretty much tried to stay as far away, since the Euros anyway, as far away from any football stuff as I possibly can. Pre-season wise, I only watched little bits and pieces here and there. Outside of that, really just tried to stay away from it. So I've been, as soon as the season started, the plan was I'd be refreshed, ready to go, and yeah, it's worked.
But with that. But okay. I can twist this around and ask you another way then. Exactly. So one of the stats that's put out there is that when he was in his last season in Portugal, he had the most tackles in the league, Sporting Lisbon. Last season for PSG, he had the most tackles in Liga as well. So with that stat alone, does that tell you why United are looking for him as that kind of destroyer, ball winner in midfield?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think the high volume type stuff that he brings and that sort of aspect that people are saying in terms of the amount of defensive work he does is a great thing. I think obviously it's pretty clear that we need somebody with an engine because, I mean, Casemiro, as I've been saying and been criticised for saying for more than 2 years now, the guy can't move. He waddles like a penguin and you're lucky if he sort of dives within 5 yards of the opposition player he's trying to tackle. So he's a disgrace. And quite honestly,
disgrace.
He's an absolute disgrace. Look, it's nothing new. I've been saying it for 2 years, but if Ugarte can move, which quite clearly he can better than Casemiro, then it's a pretty big upgrade already. I think next to Menu, if you've got someone that gets through a hell of a lot of defensive work, that's probably a good thing. I think where Ugarte lacks from the clips I've seen, which isn't a massively comprehensive sample, but I'm a bit worried about his sort of tackling technique in some of the clips I've seen. It looks like he goes into a hell of a lot of duels, and so like raw numbers, he'll look good, but technique-wise doesn't seem the best, which is a little bit concerning because in the Premier League that will cost you because there's so many players that are just so good at manipulating the ball in really tight spaces and very quickly that, to the point where if you're not able to react to that as a defensive player in a 1v1, you're going to get skinned. I don't know if you guys have seen that clip from, was it the ref's perspective?
Oh, I was going to mention that one.
Yeah, that Casemiro, not Casemiro, Elise goal against United, where Casemiro just dives in and gets nowhere near the ball. Now, that sort of thing is just a prime example of how much bad technique can cost you in the Premier League. In other leagues, when the wingers aren't quite so quick, not quite so explosive, not quite so good in tight spaces, you can probably get away with it. But in the Premier League, you see Casemiro there. On TV, it looked terrible to start with. I was at the game and it looked even worse there. But actually, he probably got a little bit closer to the ball on that camera than I thought. But he's still been made to look so stupid from on the pitch. So, yeah, I think it just shows how important and how small the margins are at top level, where if your technique's not good, it will cost you.
And speaking of sort of defence midfielders, I don't know if you guys have seen this just in the last few minutes, Fabrizio Romano saying that Manchester United have signed Mali under-17s international Sekou Kone, who is a defence midfielder. It looks like he's going to be a similar kind of situation to Obi Martin, where we've signed him, and we're kind of really stacking the academy with these sort of players at the moment. I, like many other people, have watched maybe 2 like comps over the course of 2 minutes, and can say he's the best player ever. To be fair, when everyone gets up their sofa score numbers, you got to say, well, that's impressive or whatever. No idea whether he'll make it or not, but it's exciting nevertheless. Marcel, Mr. Marcel, first of all, welcome. Second of all, with all of this Ugarte stuff, are you excited about that? Are you confident that one's gonna go through? How do you think he's going to impact the team? And I suppose, what does that mean for Casemiro? Does that mean Casemiro comes out? Is he bit part? Because he started the season well, Casemiro, in his first couple of games.
Yeah. You're right. Big up everyone as well. I hope everyone's good. The season's kicking off. We know things are getting underway. First 5 games will be a win.
Was it 5 straight wins, wasn't it?
I missed this. I'm so glad I'm back. I missed this.
It's getting started. And big up John, man. And I like the interview with Fabrizio as well, man.
I appreciate you, broski. Love.
So big up, man. I'm just looking forward to seeing, because for me, Owen, it's a squad game, and for me, everyone, it's a squad game. This season we're playing Thursday, Sunday, most probably. Obviously, the first few games are going to be Saturdays, and we've got a couple away games coming up and international break. But for the rest of the season, it's going to be Thursday, Sunday. Sorry. So we're going to need the whole squad. Ten Hag is going to be tested, I think, because the first season he kind of had the Midas touch a little bit in terms of being able to bring players on at the right times and the right moments. Second season was really poor in terms of rotation and utilizing the whole squad. I think, you know, there's been quotes from previous players that he's worked under saying he only works with 14 or 15 or so players. You know, and that's not a good sign. But with, you know, Ineos coming in, Wilcox looking at the squad and other people, footballing people looking at the squad, we really need to encourage him to utilize this whole squad. I've seen stuff online, Owen, talking about we've got 2 players in each position, which to a degree we kind of do right now. Obviously, the left back situation is a situation, but with Casemiro in the team, I'm expecting him to play maybe like 20, 30 games and come in and out. Maybe, you know, hopefully Ugarte pushes him and takes him off his perch, because Ten Hag usually rewards players if they're on good form. You know, there was moments last season where Scott was in the team and Casemiro had to take a little bit of time to, you know, to get in there because Scott was playing well. So if that kind of culture or that, you know, that tendency that Ten Hag has stays, hopefully when players are playing well, they stay in the team. And when they're playing poorly, he notices it and takes them out quickly. And I think that will benefit us in the long run. You know, similar to Cam's, did I want Casemiro in the team right now this season? No, I was hoping that the club was going to be a bit more efficient, get rid of a player, you know, that's really quick to go to ground, just very lethargic, loose with the football. But we're kind of going in this direction of quick transitions, basketball-esque kind of football. You know, we kind of play similar to Brighton with the 4-2-2 or 4-4-2 kind of style, but we're trying to add control elements as well. But it's a process. It's going to take time to get to that top level football. And if Casemiro is going to be with us for this season, then so be it. I think, you know, like you said, Owen, this Fulham, he played brilliantly. You know, had a couple shots, headers, was a good presence in terms of headering in the opposition's box.
Deserved an assist, at least one assist, definitely.
Yeah, so he's not that Casemiro. He was never going to be Real Madrid Casemiro, unfortunately, but he shows that top level qualities in spurts, and he's a 60-minute player. I think after that he gets a bit tired, heavy legs. We need to get Toby on. You need to hopefully get Ugarte on, somebody that can give you the energy and that's got a bit more quality on the board than Scott does.
Good vibes, John. How are you feeling about Ugarte and all of this rumblings? I mean, it does feel pretty inevitable we're going to get him. But if we do get him, is that just another string to Manchester United's bow this season? Another player in actually quite a big squad at this point?
I mean, in an ideal situation, right? You bring in somebody like Manuel Ugarte when Casemiro is still in form, right? So when he's the starter, when he's the main focal point in the team, when he's one of the main focal points in the team, that's when you sort of transition in Ugarte slowly. But unfortunately, Manchester United have not been able to do that because of the poor management from up top over the years of building a squad. So we're kind of in this position where Ugarte has a bit more pressure when he comes in because there is this potential over-reliance if we're going to have him start ahead of Casemiro. But, with respect to how I feel about Ugarte, I've been singing about him through this entire summer. I was telling people that I was so sure that Manchester United were going to sign Manuel Ugarte. I got really scared at one point during the transfer window when the news started cooling down because I was like, uh-oh. I was chatting all this nonsense and this is not happening, but now it seems to be the case, which is great. It's great news and good relief. I mean, Cam spoke about a bit, Marcel as well, and yourself, when you talked about the stats with respect to his defensive actions, and it's all great news. But overall, we still have so much work to do. You mentioned squad size. I still think that there is this element where we need to trim. We still need to let go of some players. We still need to, find proper depth where we are building something significant and we are looking like now we're properly finding the reinforcement in each element of the pitch. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I'm just excited. And I just want to say real quick before we go on, Cam, you called Casemiro a disgrace. That is insane talk. That is crazy. I'm not letting that slide, yo. What the hell was that?
Hey, Cam will do this. Cam will do this.
Disgrace.
He'll do this. And the way that Cam does it is he sneaks it in. You know what I mean? So when he used to talk about David De Gea, he'd be like, look, David De Gea's been here 10 years, but he's an old man. He needs to go. And you go, wow, that's a strong ending.
Ooh, he's got a club now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Should we congratulate him on finding employment after, what was it, 18, 24 months? It's a long time out in the cold for him. So, give him his flowers. He's found a club that probably suits his level. I don't know if they're in European competition or what. But,
back-to-back Conference League finalists, mate. Losers both times, but yes.
Well, that suits him perfectly, doesn't it? We know what his track record is like in European finals and European games in general. So he could not have found a better team to go to. That's the one thing that I will say is the big contrast with Casemiro, actually, is that although Casemiro is these days deficient in a lot of attributes, mentally, still a winner. And that's what you see. The Carabao Cup final was one of the most important games he had for United, because he was basically driving everything we did. Out of possession, we were really compact and he was at the heart of everything. In possession, he was a threat, as he always is in the final third. And that's one thing that, to be fair, even now he's still good at. His final third, he's actually probably one of our more creative passers in midfield, and he's pretty good at getting the end of set pieces. The problem is the stuff that's supposed to be his core game, the stuff that he needs to do to bring value to the team, he just isn't very good at doing anymore. He looks a little bit slimmer and a little bit quicker than he did do last season, but he's still miles off the level. The number of times he dives in and gets nowhere near the ball, we're just lucky that hasn't been exploited yet. At some point this season, it will be. There'll be huge gaps in midfield, and we'll end up getting run over as a team. The problem is, ultimately, it's an accident waiting to happen. Is my view on that.
Wait, no way. I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. No, sorry, Owen. No way did he just say David De Gea finally found employment. The disrespect is insane today. What is going on?
You don't even want to get into David De Gea with this bottom row. Yeah, this bottom row. You don't even want to go there.
I was about to say, John, you don't want to start with that waste of space.
You don't want to go there. You make an interesting point with Casemiro, though, Cam, because I agree with you in the sense of, I think when he was coming to United, people just thought of this sort of ball winner. That's what we need, And actually, people didn't talk enough about his sort of technical ability, his passing ability. But when he actually doesn't have a lot of time to think about it, his instinctive passing is really good. Like one touch round the corner, like a couple of times against Fulham was good and it was impressive. But I agree with you in the sense of, but physically in the Premier League as well, it's a disaster when it happened. And interestingly, with Ugarte as well, Flex did this on Sky today, which is quite interesting. You look at the heat map of Casemiro last season, as you would expect, it's more in front of sort of the back four, deeper in the pitch. Ugarte's heat map is actually really high. It's actually like just outside the opposition box, which would suggest, as a ball-winning midfielder, it's actually win the ball as high as you possibly can, and which United aren't good at. We're not very good at that. That's why we're so susceptible to counterattacks too. Because you see it sometimes. I saw it get so often because I saw people say, "Oh, it was a full-time view afterwards." People were like, we still conceded counterattacks against Fulham, and I was like, "Well, that's only because for whatever reason, and this was last season too, we get 2/3 up the way at the pitch, and then our final pass is so shit or so underhit that we're so exposed because everyone's pushed forward by that point." So you would hope Ugarte, being a ball winner high up the pitch, if that does happen, he can sweep that up, those mistakes that we inevitably will do. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that signing. I think it will happen. The finances involved in it, how we're going to pull that off, I think are still a little bit sort of sketchy when it comes to, is it going to be a permanent? Is it going to be a loan with an obligation to buy? Feels like probably the latter as opposed to the former. I think PSG, it's kind of wild, really, that they spent like 50 million quid buying him a year ago. And they think, whilst they publicly sort of said he's not in our plans, they think they can get exactly the same for him a year later. It's kind of wild. Now, I don't know if that's because I saw Mina said this on Twitter, and it is true. They're still actively paying off his fee from Sporting Lisbon. So they might want sort of Man United just basically pick that up and put that money across. I don't know, but I think that it's going to be a loan with an obligation to buy. But it's a very exciting one, nevertheless. A couple of super chats here, quite a few actually. Red Baron says, Flex still dreaming of N'Golo Kante. Oh, honestly, every time he gets brought up with Flex, and this is even off camera, yeah, he's still a big advocate. Amanor says, should we sign Ugarte if we can sign Wharton next year? We still need to sign Ugarte, definitely. To sort of Cam's point earlier on, I don't think we can go a season with not having that sort of ball winner. Neil says, never knew Varane joined United View. Still those, well, it was last season, it was Reguilon, wasn't it, Cam? That's what it was. It was Reguilon last season.
Yeah, I had a bit of both. At the England-Slovakia game, I bumped into Angry Ginger after the game, and he was just like, yeah, he saw the Varane thing. First thing he said.
Red Baron says Owen in the mud with the left back situation. Oh, honestly, I mean, for me, priority looks like we're not even going to get left back. Joe C's been known for 26 months. Says Ugarte goes right into the first 11 and unlocks Cobby. Believe. Kyle says, does the fact we haven't sold McTominay or Maguire/Lindelof, but are still buying, emphasize our ambition? We have 5 new players and no real sales. Well done, Ineos. Well, I still think there's still time when it comes to those sales. And we have still sold players this summer. And you do look at some of the outgoings. A lot of them, not all of them, have been sort of academy players. So that counts as pure profit as well. And we've also been fairly creative when it comes to our fees that we have paid. Obviously, they're on the lower side and they're spread out over a long period of time too. So, but I think sales are still certainly an ambition for United. And another super chat here says, for a fee of 50 to 60 million, there's a fab tweet that PSG didn't have to pay Sporting for him until the summer. So we are funding PSG's original fee. That's what I was mentioning previously, yes. So yes, that's the latest when it comes to Ugarte. Of course, if we get anything more on that, we'll be talking about it moving forwards. I do want to talk about this weekend because, of course, we are the early kickoff on Saturday. Brighton and Hove Albion away from home. Usually a tricky stomping ground for Manchester United. Last season, not so much, but I'm not sure how much you can read into it, considering it was last game of the season. Zirkzee was out the door. Our focus was trying to find a formation for the FA Cup final and everything else that was going on at the time. Let's start talking about centre-backs because this has been something that's been quite widely debated. Marcel, you brought it up earlier on, saying Eric likes continuity. If he's got a winning team, he likes to stick with it. With that in mind, what do you think his centre-back partnership is going to be? I mean, is it going to be Martinez and Maguire again? After a week of training for De Ligt, does De Ligt come in? Bear in mind, you've got Liverpool in a week's time as well. So you want to build up some continuity there. What do you think Eric goes with?
He's scratching his head right now. I'm a bit worried for him because it's a difficult decision because Maguire actually plays really well against Fulham, if we're honest. You know, in all aspects of defending, he plays really well. And for someone, and like one of the super chats mentioned, you know, he's one of the players that I would have wanted out the door this summer. You know, Maguire, Scott. Okay, Wamby I would have liked to have kept. And for me, Wamby in this Brighton fixture against Matomas had really good battles in previous seasons. He's had really, really good games where it's to and fro, Matoma's going at it, Wamby's going at it. So, you know, it's going to be a really good test for whoever's playing Mazwari. Mazwari, welcome to the Prem. Matoma's a good dribbler. But if we're just focusing on the centre-backs, I think you've got to keep it as before, you know. I would like De Ligt in there because what you're gaining more, I think, if you have De Ligt in there, because he's a bit quicker than Maguire and he can do the physical aspects and he can win the headers. Whereas with Maguire in there, 2v2, it's going to be 2v2 man for man there because they play the 4-4-2 as well, like us. It's basically, you know, 1v1s. And I think Maguire doing the 1v1s on the halfway line against Pedro, against João Pedro sometimes, and then Danny Welbeck, who he knows high energy and dynamic. It's going to be interesting and difficult, you know, if they're just playing 1-2s, playing it into the wide players and then running off into spaces. I think Maguire might have a difficult time and he'll have a tendency to drop off more, closing opening the lines, our team's lines and our shape a bit more, because his instinct is always to drop back and protect the goal. And we want to play on the halfway line, but he played well. It's 80 million fourth choice or fifth choice centre back. But he has played well and you have to give him that credit. So, and like you said, you mentioned a really good point. Liverpool's next. So whoever is playing, they need to have that continuity, you know, with Martinez to understand his game, kind of his ultra aggressive game. So it's a difficult choice, but I just feel like he's going to go with the exact same team in the defensive line, definitely anyway, which I don't think I personally would do. It's something that I'm really kind of fighting with in my mind, but I think he'll do the same team.
Big up to Crash Illustration. He's a regular watcher and he's a regular donator in the super chats as well. Doesn't know everyone's name every week, by the way, whenever he does this. But he says, big up with the $20 super chat. He says, big ups to Owen, 2 guys with glasses. And Kenny's not here. He called him the old man. He calls Kenny exclusively the old man. And the one, the only, the tactical maestro, Marcel. Also, where's old man KG, Minna, and the rest of them? Well, KG, who knows where KG the comedian is? Very difficult to pin down. He's a very busy man. He's a celebrity.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's a celebrity. Minna was going to be on here. She's having, as you can say in the chat, she's having some internet difficulties right now. And the rest of them, look, it's a busy time of year. It's difficult to pin down everyone. But big up to you and big up to every week. A similar super chat on those lines as well. Big up to you. Good vibes, John. One of the people with the glasses on the panel. What do you think Ten Hag goes with this weekend? Does he stick with Maguire, or does he go with the centre-back pairing that could be the one for the majority of the season?
I think the right choice here from a vibes perspective is he starts with De Ligt. I mean, Matthijs De Ligt needs to start as soon as he's fit and as soon as he's deemed ready. He starts. I would love to sit here and say I'm 99.9% sure that De Ligt is going to start. I'm 99.9% sure that that Joshua Zirkzee is going to start. But we know what Ten Hag has said earlier before. He said he doesn't want to rush players with respect to lacking fitness, lacking cohesion and awareness and understanding of the system and the style of play. We don't know to what degree of awareness Matthijs De Ligt has sort of already absorbed and sort of educated himself on with respect to Ten Hag ball. So there is still a very distinct possibility that Harry Maguire will start. And to be fair to Harry Maguire, he had a decent game. So I wouldn't be surprised if he started. But just purely like on a personal preference, I would love to see De Ligt start because the sooner he starts, the faster he gets acclimated. And for me personally, it's not the first game. There's a massive difference between the first game and the second game. I think first game, I understand if you don't want to just throw him into a fray. Second game, I have no problem with somebody as talented and with somebody the caliber and the quality as somebody like Matthijs De Ligt. Just throw him in there and see what's going on, see what's up, and see how it works out.
Cam, I saw you shaking your head when I was mentioning Brighton. It feels like it's a team that you don't like Manchester United going up against. How are you feeling about the game, and what do you think that centre-back pairing is going to be?
I mean, to be honest, just a bit nervous all round because it's not been great in the past few years going away there. I think I remember, obviously, the 4-0 a while back, and then it wasn't great Ten Hag's first season either. Obviously, that was the game before the famous Sky Sports interview, which I think Carragher and Martinez seem to have got over now, which is good. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I think we can't forget the fact that the centre-back partnership that started last game, Maguire and Martinez, was completely different to the one that finished it with Evans and De Ligt.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it doesn't necessarily make a difference. If we're going to make two changes at centre-back anyway, then they're all probably going to be involved in some capacity. I think, as John was saying, in terms of the way that Brighton play, or might be Marcel, in terms of the way Brighton play with the number 10s or sort of like João Pedro and Welbeck sometimes dropping in a little bit, I think De Ligt's probably a little bit better equipped to handle that than Maguire. So I'd probably start him. But also, I think just from a managerial perspective, if you've brought in your guy and you want to show that he's your guy, you start him as soon as you possibly can. I think the excuse has sort of been made in terms of bringing off Maguire last week. I don't know it must have been injury, right?
Yeah, I think he was limping off, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's almost the perfect excuse if you needed one to say, well, look, take it a little bit easy. We're going to start the guy who's fully fit, but also it puts a marker down for the rest of the squad that, look, if you don't pull your weight now, there's someone here that's going to take your shirt. And, for the guys in midfield or the guys at the top end of the pitch, they need to know that as well. But, we're not just signing random players who are going to sit there and watch games. We're signing players to come in and play right when they're fit. And if you're not good enough, you're going to get replaced. So I think from a cultural point and from sort of Ten Hag's perspective, he has to play De Ligt, I think, if he's available.
I agree. I mentioned this on the preview with Flex that I think that with obviously he signed the player, he's your guy, but on top of that, the fact that we have Liverpool the next week, and you would think De Ligt is going to be partnering Martinez in that game. Do you want that to be the first time they start together in the Premier League against Liverpool? I know they're very experienced players; it shouldn't be a big deal, but you would hope you get a little bit of continuity going, you get a little bit of a rapport going there as well. Because I don't. Were they in the same team at Ajax, De Ligt and Martinez, or did they miss out by like a year? I feel like they might have missed out by like a year or something. Yeah. So you would hope, and also the Premier League, it's a different pace, isn't it, and a different environment. So you would hope that I would go with them starting. But look, the discourse around Maguire is really, really interesting. For example, actually, I'll get to a super chat about that in just a second. Crash Illustration is latest member of the EU Members Club. Welcome to you. Kay says, he's been a member for 60 months, says, last time we beat Brighton, Casemiro was in defence and Martinez was replaced by Evans. If we play to our strengths, we don't need to worry about them. But this has kind of been an interesting sort of sentiment surrounding Maguire. And I think this is just because he is Harry Maguire. But Red Baron says Maguire's performance was overrated. He still kept kicking balls out of play, which gave Fulham momentum.
I think he only did that once from memory when he shouldn't have done.
And Kyle says here, our fourth centre-back doing well against Fulham isn't an accomplishment. Maguire did his job. De Ligt is going to be a starter, so play him for games that matter. And this was kind of a point I mentioned on the morning show today, is that Harry Maguire, for me, is such a polarizing figure that if you dare praise him, that is basically an indication you want him to sign a new 10-year contract and give him the captain's armband back, which is just not accurate. You know, last week against Fulham, he played well. You can play well and still not have a long-term future at Manchester United. You can play well and still not play against Brighton. I don't think he should play against Brighton against Brighton on Saturday, because De Ligt and Martinez is the long-term partnership. And once Lenny Yoro is back, if there is going to be people coming in and out of that, it's going to be Lenny Yoro being the first guy you would hope to go in as he adapts to the Premier League. But with Maguire, I don't think he played. Him saying he played well is sort of overrating him or anything like that. I mean, you can put it down to maybe a poor pass from Andreas Pereira, but he still had to stretch out the leg and stop that attack, which would have had Fulham through on goal. So yeah, it's just that is always what Harry Maguire is going to be. As long as he's at Manchester United, there are still going to be the people that remember what was. You know what I mean? As opposed to his future or what have you. But I agree with pretty much the whole panel, what you're saying. I think that it should be the De Ligt that starts instead. But to kind of Marcel's point, I wouldn't be shocked if Maguire started. I wouldn't, because Eric can do that. You know, he signed Casemiro for 70 million, and Casemiro barely got a sniff for like 6 weeks because Scott McTominay at the time was playing well. Yep. So it's entirely possible that indeed is what he does. Marcel, you mentioned the Matoma situation, and I really wanted to talk about this because I think as fans, we do this a lot when we sell players. You know what I mean? We ask for them to get sold, and then when we do sell them, we go, I can't believe they've sold them. And this is when it comes to Wan-Bissaka, this specific game and this specific player was one that was brought up. What do you think it does mean? Let's say, hypothetically, Mazraoui has a difficult game against Matona. What do you think? What do you think the reaction would be to that? Are you concerned about it, or is it just this is progression? This is the next step. There's going to be ups and downs.
Yeah, it's part of the process. I know people don't like to hear that phrase, but it is part of the process. We will be all dramatic. I was crying when Wan-Bissaka left because I know how important he is and unique in terms of his 1v1 skill set. So, but you kind of got to take the rough of the smooth. We're going to hear lots of fans, completely, moaning and crying about it, but they'll get over it once they kind of understand how important Mazraoui is in terms of his build-up and how unique he was. Like, he was freeing up passing lanes by just tucking into the midfield, and then there's a free pass out wide into Ahmad, and just the way that he positions himself, adds himself into the final third as well. He's just got so much attacking ability as well, and then he's really good at retaining the ball. I think we'll see his value the longer he kind of plays in the team and gets used to the team. But I can only imagine against superior teams, when you're calling upon someone to lock down the opposition, a Mo Salah, Saka, a top level opponent, you can only just imagine fans saying, "Oh, look, we need the Wan-Bissaka, guys. This is why we had him. This is why he was a good backup option at the right back position. And maybe we should have sold Luke Shaw and kind of a in-house fighting as to why one wasn't sold and the others kept, and these kind of chalk and cheese kind of decisions. But for me, it will be a big miss because he's just so good at locking down top quality dribblers. But I think, like you're saying, Owen, going to the next stage of progression and being more of a team that controls games and keeps the ball in the opposition half, you want somebody that is able to position themselves to cause overloads and be able to attack with good fine end product, basically. I think Mazraoui looks like he's really, really a cool customer in that regard, so should be good.
Good vibes, John. What did you make of Mazraoui's debut? Were you impressed with what you saw, and especially considering the price in which we've got him for?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Eric Ten Hag used. I saw his interview on Sky Sports with Melissa Reddy, and he basically described Mazraoui with the word dynamic. I think he must have used the word maybe 2-3 times, and dynamism was the exact sort of description and the way that I would also describe Mazraoui. Because watching him for that first time, I mean, I've kept a close eye on him. I'm sorry. I've kept a close eye on Bayern Munich because of me having to watch Kim Min-jae, and I always happen to watch the likes of Mazraoui and De Ligt and all those players. But Nusair Mazraoui is one of the players that I felt like could fit better for Manchester United than maybe Aaron Wan-Bissaka, respectfully, as much as I love Wambi, because of how fluid he looks. When he carried that ball down the half spaces, especially in the final third, driving into those spaces, being a right back, he looks so silky. He looks comfortable. And that's what I think Eric Ten Hag was looking for. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I personally think that he gets disrespected a lot in terms of his attacking output. Everybody says, "Oh, he's not good offensively." I think that's a bit of a cheap take. But irrespective of what I think or what we all discuss, at the end of the day, you can clearly see from an eye test what Mazraoui brought to this side. He looks so silky down that right-hand side. And I'm super excited because, yeah, maybe we might need to temper our expectations, but whether he's going to be backup or whether he's going to be a competitor to Diogo Dalot, the fact that we have somebody with that kind of quality on the bench or involved in the squad is great.
Cam, what did you make of his debut? You were there at Old Trafford watching it live. Were you encouraged with what you saw, and how?
I thought it was absolutely brilliant. As John said, I think the word to describe him is silky. He just looked brilliant and so fluid in everything he did. I think it's chalk and cheese, really, the way he sort of like turns on the ball compared to Wan-Bissaka. At Wan-Bissaka, you think he's going to fall over himself, and Mazraoui just looks like he could just do it for days and just keep going, and doesn't look like he's got. I think with Ten Hag's demands on his fullbacks, he needs them to play almost 4 different positions. So you sort of got like the traditional fullback role. You've got them going into the pivot when they invert. You've got them being the widest guy on the last line. So sort of like a winger, traditional winger role. Then you've also got them in the half spaces inside and the sort of like wide 10 roles as well. And Mazraoui can do all of those because he's a complete footballer. And I think Wan-Bissaka, honestly, he would be doing quite often the sort of wide 10 role, not because he was well suited to it, but because if you get him that high up the pitch, he's not going to screw up the build up and lose the ball. So I think there's certain players that we've looked at that we've had in previous seasons that have been used in certain positions tactically because they're not good enough to do other bits. Whereas now we're able to use players in their best areas because they have that skill set. So I think that's the transition that's going on. Like Scott McTominay is a great example. Initially, he was playing a little bit deeper. Eventually, quite quickly, Ten Hag realised, hang on, if we play him deeper, we're causing ourselves problems. You stick him as far up that end of the pitch as you possibly can. Don't let him touch the ball until you get to the final third, and we might be okay. But the problem is, if you do that with too many players, you're just limiting yourself to really, really struggling. So I think that's the biggest difference with Mazraoui. And yeah, I do worry a bit about Mitoma because I remember the FA Cup semi and Mitoma made Dalot look quite average, I think it's fair to say, on a few occasions. So a bit concerning, but maybe Mazraoui has a better game against him. But either way, it's a huge upgrade. And it might be that in certain occasions we lose one-on-one battles as a result in the wide areas. Part of the price of progress, in all honesty. So I don't mind it too much.
I agree with you when it comes to that. I think that, it's always going to be situations where, and again, I think as fans, we do this a lot where the player leaves me, God, this player would have been perfect for that game. It's been a lot with Fred, isn't it? We say that with Fred a lot. It'd have been perfect for this kind of game or whatever. I think that it is the next step in what Eric Ten Hag is looking for from his fullback is to have a player that is totally comfortable. I mean, just out of sheer instinct, I took a sharp inhale in breath when I saw a right back have to take a touch with his left foot against Fulham. And I thought, oh my God, oh no, he's fine. He's fine. You know what I mean? And he was totally comfortable, can play up the flank or inside. At certain points, he was basically centre mid. At one point as well, he was the furthest player forward. I thought he was going to get onto the end of a long ball. And I think so much has been made because with Wan-Bissaka, it was such a defense versus attack argument that I think so much has been made of Mazraoui's technical ability that his kind of defensive ability has been a bit lost. Because one of the first things he did against Fulham was intercept a cutback. Cutback there, he slides in, very Wan-Bissaka-esque, win the ball, stop the attack, and then United defend it well. So to your point, we're just assuming, he's going to really struggle against Mitoma. He might not. He might be fine. He's a very experienced fullback. He's played, obviously, Bayern Munich, Ajax. He's played in Champions League latter stages. So who's to say that he might not be totally comfortable with that, or as comfortable as you can be going up against Matoma, a Premier League winger that's, very fast, very dynamic in itself. There'll be some duels that he wins, some duels that he loses, but that's the nature of Fullback. That's not out of the ordinary. It really isn't.
Let's not forget as well that Wan-Bissaka was good at one aspect of defending. There were numerous other parts of the defensive game that he just couldn't do. Back post from crosses, if you stick a ball to the back post, Wan-Bissaka is almost invariably nowhere near his man and probably going to lose.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, this is crazy. Sorry, Cam, this is crazy. Like, the way you slaughter.
It's true. It's true, though, John.
No, I understand it, but nowhere near is crazy talk. You disrespecting Casemiro, you shout out De Gea, and now you're saying Wan-Bissaka is just he wasn't that bad. Well, I think we're dragging him too much here.
Yeah, but hang on. What's happened to David De Gea? He got shipped out pretty quickly. What's happened to Wan-Bissaka? He's been shipped out because he's not good enough. What's going to happen to Casemiro at the end of the season?
Shipped out.
He's going to get shipped out because he's not good enough.
No.
Ultimately, you can't just sort of gas up the players as being incredible when they're not. If you want a team that genuinely challenges for leagues and Champions Leagues, they need to be elite at a lot of different things, and ultimately, some of these players just aren't.
No, 100%. I agree with you. You're right. You have to take the emotions out of the game. But I'm talking about with respect to the amount that we're actually just pounding on these players. You called Casemiro a disgrace. You're saying Wan-Bissaka is nowhere near back post covering. I don't know about that. I agree with you. He wasn't good enough. I agree these players. There's a reason why David De Gea wasn't. He didn't find another job for a year. If he really truly was valued at that price that he should have been valued at when he was at United, of course he would have found a job. I do not disagree with you at all. But it's just the level. I feel like we're just punching on him too hard.
Yeah, maybe. But I think I just
Cam doesn't care.
These big issues in there. maybe I can't look past the issues in certain players' games. But yeah, I think when there's glaring problems, I think the Casemiro one in particular, the number of games where I've watched him and it's just been so immensely frustrating. Like you spend however much money going to watch these players traveling to watch these players play, and there's just such big problems in their game that just mean they're nowhere near the level that United need. I find it hard not to criticise them in that situation because I think there's, particularly with certain types of players, there's almost, you must have seen it before in certain situations where if you criticise a player, you get an army of people in your replies or whatever rinsing you for it, or you praise a player, you praise Harry Maguire at the moment, you get 100 people telling you that you need to
You're the problem, mate.
Horrible things happen to you and whatever else. But yeah, I think it's just in that situation, I think you need to be, in my opinion, I want to be definitive on what I don't like and what I do like. So that's the rationale.
It's the Cam logic. Super chat from Amanor says, Marcel, please tell Traps to stop shouting on Mandem talk. Hey, Marcel fights his corner on that shit. That's what he does, yeah? Exactly. And he will continue to do so this season. Big up to Josh, latest member of the member club. I think that's a returning member there as well. Sticking with the Brighton talk with the game at the weekend, Joshua Zirkzee. Let's talk about him because that's also a really interesting situation. Cam's frozen again. So whether or not he comes back, he's been censored for all the things he's been saying about De Gea and Casemiro and what have you. But let's talk about Joshua Zirkzee because, of course, scored in his debut, scored the winner. He has described himself, what did he describe himself as? Was it a 9.5? Was that how he described himself this season? A false striker, if you will. With the formation that we're playing, you can see logically where he would fit in, that sort of 4-2-4, kind of a false 9-ish kind of player. But some people are sort of saying, well, actually, the last game it was Bruno and kind of Mason Mount, who were those two most forward players pressing. Once Mason Mount kind of came off, maybe the sort of energy came down a little bit. It took a while for United to adjust. Marcel, do you think Zirkzee starts at the weekend? Or once again, do you think Eric sticks with what he was sort of starting with in the last game and Zirkzee comes on later on?
It's a great question, Owen. It's the exact same thing. I don't know if he's trying to continue with, rewarding good form. And it wasn't great for him. Mason Mount misses a chance. He picks up a yellow when he didn't have to be as rash because we were protecting the counter-attack, but we had numerical superiority in that situation. Smith Rowe was running into, a spare defender that was there, and then the other defender had the Fulham strikers occupied. So he didn't have to make that challenge in the way that he did. He could have just tried to slow down the play and run alongside Smith Rowe. Had a chance that, okay, he's not Haaland, but Haaland chips the goalkeeper in the same game week. he kind of just smashes it at the keeper when off of Rashford dribbling down blind alleys and then picking up the ball, and then Mount picks up the ball in the second half. But his pressing and his ability to invoke more turnovers is really good. Like he presses what's in front of him very well. When he sees it, he's able to see when the defender's kind of over carrying the ball, and he's able to snatch the ball off the opposition really well. Is he a top player in our side? And does he? I don't think he's a starting 11 player. I think someone that needs to occupy Bruno is somebody that with a bit of physical presence. So if it's Højlund, who I think also offers himself a lot like Mason Mount in terms of pressing and running, he just hasn't brilliant back to goal and connecting the play like Zirkzee is. We need to see what Zirkzee's kind of pressing ability is like, because that's what you're going to lose when you take Mason Mount out and put Zirkzee in. You're going to lose the pressing element at the level that Mason Mount brings, but you're going to have someone that's Martial-esque in terms of you can drop into the spaces, connect the play, link up very good. His passing off the first touch from Zirkzee after he scored anyway just looked really, really silky. Like the confidence you could see was there. So, you know, he needs to kind of learn off Ruud van Nistelrooy in terms of being a box striker a bit more, which is only going to happen the longer he stays at the football club, because he kind of does what Harry Kane does. He kind of drops really deep, collects the play, and then slowly jogs into the box and waits for his moment. Obviously, Garnacho finds him with a brilliant cross, but he's not obsessed. It doesn't look like he's someone, like he called himself a 9.5, so you can see it anyway, but he's not obsessed with playing majority of the game in the box. But he looks like a good player. I would start him because he's got the physical profile as well. We're not like Brighton. Brighton force the build-up. Or not force it, but they're always going to play out the back. Onana, for some reason, and our team, the way we're playing is if we're going long, we're going long. And maybe clipping passes or long passes into a Zirkzee might benefit us, you know. Somebody that's really tall, physical, strong, can play back to goal, bring it down, and then we start the transition or the quick passing into the wide spaces once you get it to a Bruno, once you get it to a Cass. So I would play Zirkzee, me personally, but then unfortunately, he's the number 7 of our club. I think we just got to get like this. The era that we're going into, this number 7 thing doesn't hold any more weight now. I think, you know, it's really becoming like that because he doesn't strike me as a star quality player, Mason. But in terms of it being a squad game again, he's perfect. Can play in the 6 a little bit, can play in the 8, can play in the 10, can play out wide. He's suitable there. Out of 5 stars, he's he's competent in all parts of in the middle of the pitch. So he's a good player to be in your squad. He is better than having, let's say, a Scott McTominay in the squad. It raises the level a little bit more. But I would put Zirkzee if I'm honest, Owen.
John, you're shaking your head. Is this on the Mason Mount point?
Look, I know I've been gone for a couple of months because I've been busy. I come back and y'all just absolutely just roasting everybody that I had love for. You know, this is crazy. Mason Mount was what? What, Marcel? What we talking about?
He's just not. It's just for me, John. It's just not like he's not going to give us 10 goals, 10 assists. I don't think, or 15 goals, 15 assists in a season. He's not somebody that he's not clinical in terms of finishing. I think his best attribute for me, John, is his pressing, is his ability to press players, which is not something that is like. It's not something sexy. It's not beautiful. That's not what I want to know about. I want someone to be able to break lines, dribble through the lines, score goals, wrapping it top bins. His best ability is what he offers in terms of energy. He's not...
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that, Marcel, because what you're saying is what you've just seen in the last few games and in the preseason. If you watch Mason Mount, that's not his best ability. For me, the way I see Mason Mount, and when he's on it. I mean, his best ability is holding the ball. His ball retention is incredible, especially in terms of withstanding pressure. That's what I see him good at. Obviously, you and I can, agree to disagree, and we have differing opinions, and that's completely fine. But what I do like from Mason, like what you said recently, with respect to, that press, you saw it against Fulham in the opening, 30 minutes or so? Him and Ahmad look like madmen, just absolutely just rushing it up the pitch. And that's what's the positive that we need still on there right now. I think Ten Hag, he needs to figure out how he's going to be able to get the best 11, not instead of jigsawing his players into, all right, how are we going to play this 4-2-3-1? What Ten Hag needs to do is, what's the formation that I need to play for the best 11? That's what's more important than anything. And I think Mason, at this moment in time, from what we've seen on Fulham, he deserves to start. I don't know about starting every week, but he deserves to start for now.
I can agree with that.
Cam, what do you think when it comes to Zirkzee, Mount? Who do you think starts at the weekend?
I'd probably start Zirkzee if I'm completely honest. I think Mount, I sort of agree half and half with both Marcel and John. I think, ball retention is pretty good. But I think and obviously pressing, he's very energetic. I think that's probably the first thing anybody would say about Mason Mount. If you asked people to describe Mason Mount in one word, it'd be like industrious, hardworking. I know it's 2 words, but whatever. Busy, those sorts of words. It's probably the first thing people are going to say. Ball retention's good, but I think, in all honesty, I think he lacks ruthlessness for me, and that's not just in the final third. I think where he's sometimes not as ready to break lines and penetrate as you'd like, but also. One thing that really irritated me from the Fulham game, and I know John's getting his tactics board ready.
Yeah.
The thing that irritated me most from the Fulham game, and I think Fred did it a few years back, was, you know, when you've got an opportunity to make a tactical foul and you sort of dive in, but you just make such a weak effort, the guy just runs past, you're going to get a yellow card anyway. Just clamp him. I know it's a bit, you know, agricultural or whatever, but it always annoys me when a player does that. It's like, I've seen it a couple of times from Mount. I'm not going to say 10 times, hundreds of times or anything, but I've seen it at least 3 times in different games over the past couple of years from Mount, where he's gone to try and make a tactical foul, but he's not just been strong enough or brave enough to just bring the guy down. It's the same punishment. If you make contact, it's the same punishment. Just do it properly. And that's one thing that always irritates me. And I'm not saying that's the reason why he should or shouldn't start, but I think
I was going to say it's a very specific reason why.
I think it's symptomatic of a bigger issue. I think with Mason Mount, in the sense that he's sort of like 7 or 8 out of 10 at a hell of a lot of things, and he's a very good player. But in terms of that star quality and that ruthlessness to just be at that level, that's where I think he's missing it. I think mentally he's just not quite in the same way that Bruno. I mean, we criticize him sometimes for forcing things too much. He's got that ruthlessness. Casemiro's got that ruthlessness and that winning mentality. I think Mason Mount, for me, just like he's just that little bit within himself, and it's small margins, but for me, I think that's the difference there. In terms of Zirkzee, good presser, I think, and I think he offers us a different dimension. And I think from the quality he showed off the bench, it just depends how fit he is, but there's no reason to not just let him start and keep building minutes in his legs, really, in my opinion.
So
John,
Cam, sorry, I just want to say, Owen, Cam, so what would your front 3 and your midfield 3 look like? For Brighton.
For Brighton on the weekend.
Yeah.
I think the only change I would make in those 2 lines would be Zirkzee in for Mount.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do we play a front and midfield 3, guys? I feel like we're a 4-4-2 or 4-2-2 team now.
Yeah, I think it's more of that, but same semantics.
Yeah, they will adapt in the game depending on what's happening. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. A couple of super chats here as well. Where are we at? Glocktopus says, I'm not a sentimental guy, so Cam and Marcel are my favorite UV duo. Sounds quite sentimental. Side note, if pressing is your best attribute, you're just a runner in cleats. PS says, Cam, would you say that Zirkzee is a Weghorst, but with much superior quality? John, which year is your Werder Bremen jersey from, and whose name is on the back? It's not even a jersey, is it? Is it a zip up?
No, it's one of those like it's a trackie. Yeah, it's
Werder
call
Bremen
it a trackie. We call it a zip up top or something. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
But Cam, is Zirkzee Weghorst with superior quality after half a game that you've seen of him?
In a lot of ways, yes. I think the only bit that I don't like about Zirkzee is his shooting and finishing. I think he's a bit. The comparison's actually better than I thought.
His finish was good. His finish was good in the last
game. That particular finish was good, but in general, from the way he tends to finish, I think probably because he's like just so tall and he's got such like really long legs, he seems to stick the ball just like a little bit too far out in front of him when he's in a crowded penalty area. And what that means is that then he ends up either getting under the ball and skying it sometimes, or he's stretching to get that contact, and it means that then his shot's a little bit weak. So that's the bit that slightly irritates me with Zirkzee. But everything else, I think the profile is fairly similar to some of the stuff Weghorst gave us when he was playing a little bit deeper in the 10 role.
He played him for a while, didn't he? My goodness.
I can sort of see similarities, and I can see how he'd bring the best out of Rashford in the same way that Weghorst in the 10 did a little bit.
Man, I don't know if you can say Joshua Zirkzee and Wout Weghorst in the same sentence. Well, look,
this is crazy.
But I was a bit of a Wout advocate. I still am to this day, by the way, as well. In terms of an option coming off the bench, look, Netherlands use them all the time, and it works, and it still works.
He plays for the Netherlands over Zirkzee sometimes, doesn't he?
Sometimes he legitimately does, but I don't know if we can make those kind of comparisons just yet. I mean, after Zirkzee's played less than half a game, and he scored our winning goal. We'll see what happens with that one. For me, I don't know. I think some of the Mason Mount talk coming out of the game was quite harsh, in all honesty. Again, I thought that, yes, I mean, I get it. I know I get the point that people make. They're going, oh, if you're only good at pressing, then you're a glorified Jordan Henderson kind of situation, basically, which is fair, But at the same time, what I will say is when Mason Mount came off, we took a while to adjust to kind of like, what are we actually going to do here? Like, because no one's running around anymore. No one's really pressing from the front. So what do we do with that? And I don't know if that's just a case of Ten Hag needs a like for like in that kind of position, or if it is going to be a Joshua Zirkzee, he's got to do that. Can he even do that level of pressing? Sort of just that tiresome, just keep running, keep pressing, keep running, keep pressing. So I do think he got sort of the suggestion that, because I thought he did okay. I don't think he was standout or anything like that, but I thought he did well. Mason Mount, he had an opportunity to score as well. Maybe could have done a bit better with his chance. As far as will he start the weekend, you know what? I think he probably will. That is one I'm more confident. I think Mason Mount will probably start again. I don't think Ten Hag will want to upset the apple cart too much on that. I think he'll probably go with the change at centre back, but with Mount, I could see him sticking with that. But then that leads into the other conversation, which is wide right. Now, I think if we went around, regardless of your opinion on him at the moment, it feels like that Marcus Rashford, he's going to probably start because Erik ten Hag wants him to work out and wants him to get back to what it was a couple of years ago. But the right-hand side gets really, really interesting because, of course, we know that Ahmad had a good preseason. We know that United want him to be featured more this season, but Alejandro Garnacho against Man City came on, scored, and created chances. When he came on against Fulham, he should have scored with that whole Rashford debacle at the end of the game. But he adds this injection of pace and quality. He's more experienced than Ahmad in terms of playing games in the Premier League. So, Marcel, what do you think Ten Hag goes with in that regard? Does he stick with Ahmad, who the last few games maybe been a bit more quiet than we would have expected, and Garnacho's come on and excited the place? But could Ten Hag keep with that? I'll bring Garnacho on later on in the game, use it as a weapon.
Yeah, I think because we're in a healthy position in terms of so much options in the forward line. Even Sancho, to a degree, if he doesn't leave, is there as well. So he's got a lot of options in the forward line, to be honest with you. And I think you should maybe keep Ahmad and then give that injection of energy and pace, once the game starts to open up a little bit more in the second half. Garnacho has lots of space to run into and to attack and do his 1v1 dribbling. I think, Brighton's fullbacks to me don't strike me as their big threats. I think it's definitely, we haven't mentioned Minter, the new left-footed winger that they have as well on the other side.
Yeah.
He's really good as well. But I think you've got to maybe keep Ahmad. Ahmad's a match winner for me. He hasn't really settled in. It was preseason, and he done really well in preseason, but he hasn't really. That game against Fulham was quite average. I mean, there was one dribble moment where he could have had a penalty potentially, but there was times where he should have attacked maybe crosses coming from the other side of the pitch where you got to really attack the back post completely, almost hit into the post. He doesn't do that. It's for me. It's got to be Ahmad, but Garnacho is a threat, man. Even on the left hand side, he's because Rashford's just not really being rashy right now. It's really weird the mode that he's in, but Garnacho's there. We've got really healthy options in the wide areas this season, and I'm hoping that there's going to be 50-60 games this season. Ahmad will get plenty of minutes to show us his level, and I think he deserves to play this one again against Brighton.
Cam, what do you think Ten Hag goes with when it comes to that right side? Does he stick with Ahmad? Does he put Garnacho in away game as well? Maybe goes with a bit more experience.
Yeah, I think Brighton, from some of the clips I've seen, again, I haven't watched that much of them so far this season, but from some of the clips I've seen, they seem to play a really high line. So from that perspective, obviously Garnacho probably would be a better fit. But I think it's really about the balance of that front four. So if we talk wingers and the two false nines, or 9 and 10, whatever you want to call them, it's really about the balance in the sense that you need, if you're going to have some creative players that want to drop deep off the last line. You're going to need some players that go beyond the last line as well. I think the balance just isn't quite there at the moment. So what we had last week, Rashford of that front four is the only one that really wants to run behind all the time, whereas the other three all want to drop in and receive in front of the defence. So I think that's probably not helping Ahmad. I think ironically, actually, with a normal 9, with Højlund playing instead of Mason Mount, let's say, Ahmad would have done much better because he can then supply Højlund and Rashford. But I think with Mason Mount and Bruno playing as sort of almost double false nines in that, I think Ahmad's just sort of, yes, he can do the intricate play, but there's nobody stretching the defence that he can hit on occasion to mix it up. And I think that's the bit that's missing at this moment in time. So I think profile-wise, in terms of trying to build the best team, I think Garnacho probably is a better fit for this game. And particularly if Mason Mount or even Zirkzee play the same way, same shape that we had last time.
John, what do you think when it comes to the right-hand side? Do you think Ahmad keeps a spot, or is it going to be Garnacho?
I would like to. I mean, what we've seen from Erik ten Hag is that, there is a bit of that ambiguity with respect to his philosophy, right? There are certain players where he just gives them chances after chances after chances, whereas there are some other players where he's so super cutthroat with them. So I can't really depict or guesstimate what he's going to do with Ahmad. But for me personally, I would just give Ahmad another try or a couple of games just to see, how he gels into the side. If he's going to build a squad, these are the moments where he should try it. And I would love to see Ahmad start. I think I agree 100% with Cam in the respect to having somebody like Garnacho against a team like Brighton, who are sort of play with a bit more boldness and breaking through the lines and finding that space behind the back four is perfect for somebody like Garnacho. So I think, as much as I like the idea of Garnacho, I think fundamentally at this moment in time, I would rather hope, for the sake of the long term, just give Ahmad this opportunity. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we sit here. It's a 7:30 kickoff for me. I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up at 6:30 and see that Erik ten Hag says, "Oh, you know what? We're gonna mix it up. We're gonna go Zirkzee, Rashi up top, and we're gonna dump 4 midfielders in there with Mace, Bruno, Cubby, and Casemiro." I wouldn't even be surprised if he did something like that. And I think that speaks to volumes. As to, like, I think you alluded to it before, Owen. The options that we have, or it might have been Marcel. The options that we have with respect to at least putting together a squad at this point is something healthy. So I'm looking forward to it, irrespective of who starts. But overall, I would prefer Ahmad.
I forgot those early start times for you. Yeah, that 12:30 slot is a tough one for John. That is an early start as well. For a game against Brighton, that can go. That could go the other way pretty badly. You know what? It's interesting because we saw this towards the end of last season. We saw Rasmus Højlund come off the bench and score a couple of times, and it actually worked against him in terms of starting games because Eric got it in his mind that that's actually good. Like, because let's stay in the game for this amount of time, then actually right at the end we bring someone on, stretches the game, we score the goal, and we win the game. And I could see that happening with Garnacho in this one. I could see at least a thought process of actually let's wait till it gets to 60, 65 minutes, and then, like you say, they play with a high line. And we'll see if we can just keep, breaking the lines or putting the ball over the top. Let's see if we can start getting some switches over to Garnacho, and maybe he'll get some luck. And maybe, that leads to a couple of chances, and you end up winning the game quite comfortably. So that one, I think, is a bit of a toss-up. I wouldn't be shocked if Ahmad does still start, and Garnacho, actually, his impact off the bench has almost worked against him to an extent. But we shall see indeed. I think I'm caught when it comes to super chats. How many likes did we end up at? We've still got nearly 1,200 people watching. We're only 30 likes away from 600. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. We recently hit 175,000 subscribers. Now the road to 200k is firmly on, and we'll have another gathering, another party. Marcel going to deep training for it as well. Yeah, Marcel. We were at Toca Social last time. Marcel was doing his shuttle runs. He went on like a 6-week training program for it. Paid off though because you won. So yeah, can't lie. So yes, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. What's on tap for tomorrow? We've got the morning show. We've got the Trinity. Flex, KG, and myself will be discussing everything Manchester United, and of course, got the game of the weekend as well. So we're here with a match view, a full match day experience. Very quickly for the panel, prediction for Saturday. John, I'll start with you.
Because I'm waking up early, I want to see goals. I'm going to go 3-1. Come on, United!
At the Amex. Oof. Cam, what are you thinking?
1-0. Gritty 1-0.
Gritty 1-0. Did we do gritty 1-0s at the Amex? Is that really our style?
Not the Amex, but we did it in the last weekend.
yeah, that's true. Marcel, Mr. Positivity. What are you going with?
Yeah, 3-1. 3-1. I agree with John. I think this season is going to be the season of goals. hopefully 80 to 100 goals, Premier League goals this season expected from Manchester United Football Club will be delivered. And 3 of them, making it 4 so far this season, will be coming from from Saturday's game.
I've gone with a 2-1. I think I'm going to go with 2-1. I'm not like massive. If this was like last season going to the Amex, I know it was a bit different at the end of it, but in previous years, you go, oh, got to go to Brighton. Because they're still somewhat of an unknown entity under their new manager, there is a possibility that actually we go there and we could actually comfortably win the game because you don't know. And their win against Everton is not the best barometer because they did have a player sent off and Everton actually were on top for like 20 minutes. So we shall see indeed. But big up to John, big up to Marcel, big up to Cam. Be sure to follow them all of their socials and everything they're doing on the interweb as well. I'm sure people will put them in the chat and we'll be back tomorrow morning. We're out of here. Peace.